I had to crouch a little to fit behind the passenger seat. My knees protested the position, but I smiled to myself anyway, pressing the warm tin of cookies against my chest. I hadn't done something playful like this in years. Just a simple surprise me in the back seat of her car, ready with birthday hugs and a ribbon-wrapped gift box. She always loved surprises. Or at least she used to. The car door opened. I held my breath, grinning, waiting for her laugh. But it wasn't just Noelle. Another voice, lighter, younger, chimed in. "Oh, she's still resisting," the woman said, as they both slid into the front seats. Noelle exhaled sharply. "She'll sign. She's soft. Always has been." My stomach clenched. The tin of cookies suddenly felt heavy. I stayed still. Once she signs, the woman said again, she's gone for good. Then Noelle laughed. Not nervously. Not in confusion. But like someone enjoying the show. She still thinks she's in control. Noelle said, starting the car, "You should have seen her yesterday asking if I needed help with my taxes. It's almost cute." The woman Lara, I later learned, snorted. "Pathetic. Honestly, you've waited long enough. The house, the accounts, once they're in your name, you'll have peace." Noelle didn't argue. She just drove. The seatbelt buckle dug into my shoulder, but I barely noticed. My eyes were locked on the back of my daughter's head. Her hair was tied back in the same careless bun I used to fix for her before school. She was always so particular, never liked it when it was too tight. I used to stroke her scalp when she was feverish. I used to carry her when her knees buckled from asthma attacks. I used to think I knew her. I didn't even recognize her voice. The car turned down Main Street. They kept talking about the paperwork, the timing, the doctor they'd speak to. I sat in silence. I waited until they parked and walked away before slipping out of the car. Quiet, unseen. And I walked the rest of the way home with the box still in my hands. I didn't cry. Not even once. The sky had already turned that pale gray it takes on before sunset, and I walked slowly, clutching the tin of cookies like it still had meaning. I passed neighbors I knew by name. They waved. I nodded. My mouth moved. I think I smiled, but inside, something quiet had cracked. At home, I placed the cookies on the counter. They smelled like cinnamon and butter, and the years I spent trying to make things feel special. I looked at the ribbon on the box, curled just the way Noelle liked it when she was younger. I left it there untouched. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at my hands. They've always been steady. These hands have packed lunchboxes, written checks, held my husband's IV drip when the nurses were too busy. I remembered the day I sold my wedding ring, pawned it without hesitation to cover the last of Noelle's tuition. I told her it was just an old ring, and she never asked again. Maybe she believed me. Then there was the year Howard's medication bills nearly bankrupted us. I took on weekend shifts at the library and stopped going to the dentist. Noelle never noticed. She was busy building her life as she should have been. When she came to me for that business loan, the startup she said would free her from corporate chains, I wrote the check without blinking. $20,000 from my retirement account. "It's yours," I told her. "Just promise me you'll take care of yourself." And now, this. I wasn't a burden. I was just background. A tool. A name on a deed she thought she could lift cleanly from the paper. I opened the kitchen drawer and pulled out the folder where I kept copies of the house documents, account summaries, insurance policies. I flipped through them with deliberate care, no longer just a mother, but something else, something colder, something watching. And that's when I noticed the envelope I hadn't seen before. The envelope didn't belong. It was tucked between an old water bill and a file labeled Quinn Holloway Holdings. I didn't remember putting it there. My name was scrawled on the front in a handwriting I recognized Noelle's, though rushed almost like she hadn't wanted to write it at all. I opened it carefully, half expecting to find another misplaced bill or a forgotten birthday card. What I found instead was a printed letter, my doctor's name at the top. The language was measured clinical. Request for evaluation of cognitive function, memory lapses, unusual behaviors. Signed by Noelle Quinn. Dated 2 weeks ago. Beneath it, clipped together, were more papers. A power of attorney form, the kind that gives someone full legal and financial control. My name as the principal. Noelle's as the agent. No signature yet, but everything else filled out. Even the witness lines signed and dated. She didn't even bring it to me. She had filled it out first, confident I would just sign. I sat back the paper, trembling slightly in my hands. Not because I was afraid, but because something deeper had shifted. Not suspicion, not anger, just recognition. She had already started removing me, piece by piece, quietly, efficiently, while I baked, while I folded laundry, while I read the same book she used to love. I looked again at the doctor's letter. There were phrases I couldn't unsee. May require long-term care planning. Patient exhibits confusion. Increased dependency. I thought about the way she smiled when she handed me that new phone last month. Just making things easier for you, Mom. How she insisted on helping with the bills, slowly shifting them into her name. It wasn't kindness. It was inventory. I slipped the documents back into the envelope and locked them in my desk drawer. Then I reached for my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. Tilda answered on the second ring. Tilda hadn't changed. Still sharp as a tack and twice as fast with a pen. She met me at a little cafe near the courthouse, the kind with low ceilings that smelled like burnt coffee and old paper. I slid the envelope across the table without saying much. She opened it, read in silence, and then looked up with a face that didn't need softening. This, she said, tapping the letter to my doctor, is financial elder abuse. Classic playbook. She didn't sugarcoat things. Never had. That's partly why I called her. I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. She's already started filing things. I think she wants the house. Everything. Tilda leaned back. She probably thinks it's already hers. She's wrong, I said. She raised an eyebrow. You remember what Howard set up before he passed? It took me a second. The name flickered through my mind. Quinn Holloway Holdings. Howard had transferred our house and other assets into it years ago, more as a way to shield the family from taxes and chaos than anything else. Technically, she continued, you don't own the house outright. The company does. And you control the company. I blinked. You mean she can't touch it? Not without your consent, and that power of attorney she tried to sneak in. It's worthless unless you sign it, which you won't. For the first time in days, I felt something that resembled air move through my chest. Tilda took a small notepad from her bag. We're going to file a formal notice of concern. Get ahead of this. If she tries anything else, medical, legal, financial will have documentation. I watched her write steady and clean. The same hand that had helped me write grant proposals back when we were both just trying to keep the local library funded. She doesn't know what she's up against, Tilda said softly. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Because now I knew exactly who I was dealing with and exactly what I had to do next. I started with her business card, white thick, printed in cursive gold. Lara Bellamy, financial transition specialist. No phone number, just a website. I typed it in that evening, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of reheated coffee and my reading glasses perched low on my nose. The website was slick. Testimonials from adult children praising her guidance. Helped us move Mom into care gracefully. Made the transition so smooth. Not one mention of the parents themselves. Just photos of smiling couples holding clipboards and brochures about next steps. I dug deeper. Her name popped up in public records twice in the last 7 years. Both civil suits. Plaintiffs over the age of 70. Terms sealed, but one line stood out in both financial exploitation of a dependent adult. Each case had been dismissed after a private settlement. I kept digging. The next day, I followed Noelle. She met Lara at a cafe on the other side of town. Not the casual kind with mismatched chairs, but one of those glass-walled places where everyone sipped espresso like it was strategy. I sat at the corner earbuds, in phone angled just enough. I'd watched enough true crime documentaries to know how to record a conversation without looking obvious. Lara did most of the talking. Noelle just nodded occasionally, asking questions occasionally, smirking. Once she signs, it's a straight transfer, Lara said. She won't even realize what she's given up until it's done. Noelle stirred her drink. She still bakes me cookies like nothing's wrong. They laughed. Then Lara leaned in. She's an easy case. The money will be ours before she finishes her next grocery list. I pressed stop. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. Just that slow, humming heat that settles in your chest when something precious has been mocked. I transferred the file to a flash drive as soon as I got home, made 2 copies. One went to Tilda. The other stayed tucked under my mattress inside the same envelope where I'd once kept Noelle's kindergarten drawings. Noelle picked the kind of restaurant she knew I didn't like, white tablecloths, low lights, waiters who hovered. She arrived late, kissed my cheek like she hadn't been avoiding my calls, and ordered wine before I'd even sat down. Her smile was all practiced ease, but her hands gave her away fingers, drumming against a sleek leather folder she kept sliding closer to her plate. "Mom," she said, opening the folder, "I've been thinking about you. About how hard it must be to keep track of bills and property taxes and all that. I want to take the stress off your shoulders." She nudged a stack of papers toward me. "This will make things simpler, just so I can help you manage things." I picked up the first page. Legal phrases. Tiny print. My name at the top, her name below, written as agent. I glanced at her, and she smiled the same way she had when she used to hand me Mother's Day cards drawn with crayons. "It's just a precaution," she said softly. "Sign here, here, and here." I set the papers back on the table and reached for my water. "Let me read them tonight," I said. "I like to take my time." Something flickered across her face. Annoyance quickly covered with another smile. "Of course. Take your time." We finished lunch in small talk. She paid the bill, hugging me with one arm as we parted. "Don't stress, Mom. It's all for your own good." Back home, I spread the papers across my kitchen table. Tilda arrived 10 minutes later, hair pulled back, reading glasses dangling from her neck. We sat shoulder to shoulder, scanning line by line. It wasn't a precaution. It was a full transfer home accounts insurance, every anchor of my life into Noelle's name. I slid the last page back into the folder, my fingers steady now. "She thinks this is over," I said quietly. "It's not." And the next morning before dawn, I made my first call. The office hadn't changed. Same cracked leather chairs, same brass lamp with the green shade, same dusty bookshelf filled with volumes no one touched anymore. I sat across from Edward Miles, my late husband's attorney, one of the last people who still called me Mrs. Quinn, out of habit, not formality. He read through the documents Tilda and I brought Noelle's forms, the power of attorney draft, the recorded transcript of Lara's promises. When he finished, he folded his hands and said, "Well, it's a good thing Howard planned for the worst in people." By noon, we had logged into every account linked to Quinn Holloway Holdings. Edward walked me through resetting passwords, changing signatories, updating access privileges. I removed Noelle's name from the secondary account she had slipped onto 2 years ago for emergencies. I closed the shared credit card she used for house errands. I reissued the title of the house, routing it into a new trust I now controlled solely. By early afternoon, I had submitted a formal complaint to the state's Elder Protection Unit, Lara's name credentials, and a copy of the audio recording attached. Tilda had helped me write the narrative. I kept it brief, factual, no emotion. Then I went to the notary, signed the transfer forms for the trust, and had copies mailed to a post office box I opened that morning, a separate mailbox. A quiet place where only my name existed. By 4 o'clock, everything was mine again, and I hadn't said a word to Noelle. I didn't respond to her reminder text about the papers. I didn't call her back. I let her sit in silence, assuming everything was moving according to her plan. She thought I was slow, tired, grateful. The kind of woman who made cookies and waited for permission to live in her own house. I wasn't angry anymore. I was methodical, because I knew what was coming next. And for once, so would she. They came just after 10 in the morning. I had already brewed coffee, set out 2 plain white mugs, and opened the curtains wide so the sunlight hit the front door directly. I was ready before they even knocked. Noelle stood on my porch, with Lara at her side, and a man I didn't recognize, mid-40s. Blazer too new, smile too practiced. She introduced him as Dr. Marcus Penley, a specialist in geriatric assessments. Lara didn't speak, but she didn't need to. The confidence in her eyes said enough. "We're just here to help," Noelle said sweetly, as if I were the one with something to prove. "You've seemed a little overwhelmed lately." The doctor held a clipboard. "We'd like to perform a brief evaluation just to ensure everything's in order." I stepped aside and gestured to the table. "Please, let's be thorough." They followed me in. I let them sit. Let the silence stretch just enough. Then I reached into the drawer behind me and placed 2 documents on the table between us. One was a medical certificate from my primary care physician, signed just 2 days ago, confirming full cognitive function and mental clarity. The other was a court-issued cease and desist order, filed by Tilda and Edward, prohibiting any unauthorized psychological evaluations or attempts to modify my legal status. Dr. Penley blinked twice. I wasn't informed of this." "I imagine you weren't," I said, watching his face pale. Lara leaned in, skimming the document. "This doesn't change anything. We're just here to protect you." "No," I said quietly. "You're here to discredit me, so you can take what's mine. But I'm not confused. I'm not afraid. And I'm not alone." Noelle didn't speak. Her face, usually so controlled, cracked in a way I hadn't seen since she was a teenager, caught in a lie. I reached for the coffee pot. Would anyone still like something warm? They left 10 minutes later without a sip. No one said goodbye. That afternoon, I made one final copy of the paperwork and drove it to the district office. The call from Edward came before sunrise. His voice carried a calm finality. "It's done. The accounts have been secured. Your daughter no longer has access." I thanked him quietly and hung up. The house felt different, as if the air had shifted overnight. By 8 o'clock, the first ripple appeared. Noelle tried to make an online transfer and was denied. A text from her flashed across my screen. "Mom, something's wrong with the bank. Call me immediately." I didn't reply. Another followed minutes later, more insistent. I set the phone face down on the table and poured my coffee. At 10, Tilda called. The Attorney General's office served Lara Bellamy this morning. Subpoena for all her files. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. I pictured Lara's poised expression, cracking the same way Noelle's had. Years of whispered instructions and polished plans evaporating in one envelope. By noon, the story had broken. Online, Mother exposes daughter's financial scheme. The article didn't name me, but the details were unmistakable. A quiet widow. A daughter's plot. A trusted advisor. I read the first paragraph once, then closed the browser. The words didn't matter. The evidence was already where it belonged. Edward and Tilda coordinated everything. Copies of the recordings, bank statements, letters, notarized affidavits. Each piece placed neatly into the case file. Nothing sensational. Just facts stacked like stones. My phone buzzed all afternoon, unknown numbers, journalists, a neighbor asking if the rumors were true. I let them all go to voicemail. My hands stayed busy instead, filing one last set of documents into a fireproof box, locking it, sliding the key into my pocket. Outside, the late spring sun poured across the porch. I stepped into it, breathing deeply. Noelle's world was cracking in real time, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like prey. I closed the door behind me and went to answer the knock I had been expecting. 6 months passed without a single word from Noelle. Not an apology, not an explanation. Just silence, and for once it felt like peace. I still live in my house. The floors creak the same, the porch swings a little slower now, but it's mine. Every corner, every memory. No one hovers over my bank account. No one questions my capacity. No one lays papers in front of me and calls it help. Noelle stood in court with her head lowered, her voice barely above a whisper as she pled guilty. The judge ordered restitution. She'll spend the next 5 years repaying what she tried to steal in one clean sweep. Her professional licenses were revoked. As for Lara, she didn't get the luxury of a plea deal. The charges stacked up quickly: conspiracy, fraud, elder abuse. Her trial starts next spring. I used part of the restitution to seed something new, a small fund that offers legal support to seniors facing financial exploitation. Tilda helps run it. We hold monthly workshops at the Civic Center. Nothing fancy, just coffee flyers and someone who knows how to read the fine print. And last week, we held a ribbon cutting at the renovated community library, the same one where I once shelved books, wrote grant applications, and read stories to children on Thursday mornings. Now it bears my name on the front plaque, the Zerelda Quinn Public Library. I stood outside after the ceremony, watching parents walk their kids and watching older folks wander through the new wing with curious eyes. A reporter asked how it felt having a building named after me. I told her the truth. I was never the burden. They were. She blinked. I smiled. Later that evening, I sat on my porch with a mug of black coffee and the soft rustle of trees for company. No texts. No lies. No more trying to be good enough for someone who only saw me as an obstacle. The sky turned gold over the roofline, and for the first time in years I exhaled without hesitation.